more when it comes to difficulty, can you speak more to kind of on Epic's behalf where they maybe
Yeah,
made things more difficult for you? Because
yeah, for sure.
obviously where you have where you guys have such a talented roster, and I'm sure you're looking to evolve that roster even more. I wouldn't be surprised if you have someone competing at the World Cup later this year or whatever the event is, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Epic haven't done the greatest of jobs when it comes to kind of supporting orgs and implement orgs into what they do. Is that something that you guys at MRKN have put much thought into, and does that kind of stops you from investing too much into the Fortnite scene?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll touch on everything you said, but ultimately the main goal is to have our players attend the next future World Cup. Hopefully that happens. But what Epic has done, I mean, we could say you and I, the community could say that we're not happy with it, especially with the new announcements of the new engine, right? Um, but for us as an organization, lately it's been difficult because you saw with Ghost how they let their players go,
Yeah,
and it, it's hard. It's hard to word, but Bala did it very well in his tweet. I'm not sure if you saw what he said, but essentially, it's these esports organizations are. Fortnite was so big a year ago,
yeah,
right? And with that, salaries, were standard. Communication between orgs and players were there. But after the World Cup, that's when everything and leading up to the World Cup, that's when everything kind of got inflated.
yeah,
So salaries got inflated because of the percentage taken that these organizations are looking for in the contracts,
yeah,
right? And so if whatever that is, if you go in and you're minimum making 50 grand from the World Cup, that percentage is going to take a big toll, right? So players are asking for higher salaries,
yeah,
and that's become the standard. So from personal experience, I know what some players are looking for, and in my opinion, it's a very high number.
all right,
And organizations aren't necessarily looking to pay that much, especially with the Epic and Fortnite not officially doing the broadcasts for the events, right? And that's in the World Cup. That's when a lot of organizations got exposure. Seeing say FaZe in Dub's name, right?
yeah,
And he's just killing it, right?
yeah,
That's a lot of exposure on 50 K viewers to 100K viewers, 200K viewers, right? It's a lot of people. So that hasn't been happening, and that's where, in my opinion, organizations are kind of taking a step back and um, thinking about, hey, like, are is this really what we want to do with this money? Like,
yeah,
are we really getting what we need and want out of it? And I'm not saying that it's a cruel business. Looking at the organizations just wanting to make money and getting bigger. I mean, for some, that's what it is,
yeah.
and for others, it's a lot about the players as well. Um, if that kind of touches on it, I'm not sure, but that's the difficulties that we have, and especially with the new season coming out now pushed back until February 20th. That's big, especially for these organizations that are currently contracting and providing money to the players. That there's no future really competitive events until after February 20th, right? So
Yeah.
it's been. I'm not sure when squads ended. I don't know if you do either, but let's just say it was in December. I'm not sure. So it's been 2 months since the last official competitive event, and that's 2 months of salary going towards the players, right? So it's very hard. The communication has been scarce between Epic and everyone,
Yeah.
and everyone's not happy about that. So yeah, I think that kind of
Is that
outlines our struggles with it.
yeah? I want to say so. You've already said a lot there. So there's a couple things I want to pick away at.
Mm-hmm.
With what you said just most recently, is that where you as an org put more pressure on your players to provide content, right? This is a big thing that's being discussed recently, obviously,
Yeah.
especially with like a lot of the ghost players who were, you know, who have not re-signed with the org or have been dropped, whatever the circumstances were. I'm not too sure right
Hmm.
now. Um, a lot of those guys, frankly, weren't producing much content.
Right.
A lot of them weren't streaming consistently. A lot of them maybe weren't as consistent and doing as well on YouTube and whatnot. How do you feel about that? Like, is that something? Is that like something that you guys kind of, you know, drill into your players? Is that something you maybe even include in contracts? Right? Hey, you guys have to have a certain amount of streaming hours. This kind of thing. Like, how much pressure do you put on your players to provide content?
Um, I think for us, we don't try to push our players in an unhealthy way, right? We want them to be happy and satisfied with what they're doing. We want them to be happy and satisfied with us as an organization
Yeah,
and us as staff members as well. But we have had conversations about, hey, look, like you guys have an amazing opportunity right now to boost your socials, whether that's Twitter and, you know, mainly Twitch and YouTube, right? Those platforms are huge right now for gaming. And if you decide that you want, whenever you retire or whenever Fortnite expires, you don't want to regret not putting in that extra work now
yeah,
when YouTube people are making careers out of it, right? And these players are so good from any organization, whether it's us, Ghost, Liquid, that they should be putting out content. They should be uploading to YouTube, because if they're, you know, making videos and getting views and subs now, that's always going to be there with them.
yeah.
And people like Tifu, like he just let's not say him. Let's say Clicks. Clicks was a nobody, right? And then he started placing well. He started streaming, and of course he got help along the way. But who's to say that none of these players won't get help along the way either, right? And now he can make a career for the rest of his life out of streaming, out of uploading on YouTube or whatever it is, right? And I think that's what I think for us, we try not to be greedy with it.
Yeah.
We're not saying, hey, look, like we need you to put out content. We're kind of doing it on behalf of the players. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And saying this is an amazing opportunity for you guys to further your journey into gaming, or you know what I mean? Because these guys could be gamers for the rest of their lives on YouTube or on Twitch,
Yeah.
or they could, you know, change it to vlogging. And I think that's mainly where we're coming from, is that is kind of from that perspective, if that makes sense.
Another thing I wanted to get out there with you was, so you talked about, you know, having them like player salaries being inflated, and there's a lot of speculation about, you know, what kind of player salary, what kind of levels those are at now. Obviously, without, you know, exposing anything about your org, obviously you said you have an idea or guess of the kind of numbers. What would you guess like the average kind of salary is around for tier 1 pros right now?
Well, it really depends on the organization, because I don't want to give anything away in specific, but I know some organizations, obviously they all have different contracts, they all have different write-ups of everything.
Yeah.
But for some big for some big organizations, some of the players aren't making as much as you would think. In return, they're getting a lot of exposure from the organization.
Yeah, that
right?
is a balance, a trade-off that you often have.
Exactly. So for someone who's I don't know, say starting an organization, the players are going to want a bit more money because they're not getting that exposure. They're not working with those sponsors.
Of course.
Some contracts are performance based, some contracts are growth based. So I think that's all I can say. I mean, some people are wanting an insane amount of money. In my personal opinion.
How insane are you talking?
Well, one of the players who is doing very well right now, who is currently obviously not signed to an organization, I'm not going to say the name.
Yeah.
And I honestly have no clue if this is a troll or not, but he was asking for around 12K.
12K
which is 12K a month, which is absolutely insane. I've heard 6K from someone who recently just got signed. So I don't know if they're acquiring that money, and I don't know if they're getting that money now,
Yeah.
but that's a number that I heard right from him, straightforward. So yeah, I mean, it all depends on the organization and what
Yeah.
assets they have.
I've had similar numbers, to be fair. I have heard similar
Yeah.
numbers around. There's certain players who I've spoken to personally who have given me a bit of insight into how much they get paid, and obviously I'd never reveal that unless that's something that they came out with publicly.
Yeah.
Like, it is interesting to see how kind of Fortnite salaries evolve and how that will kind of start to affect organizations, especially like yourself, right? Because you guys are an org where you have some sort of prestige, so like being able to keep up with players demanding so much, could start to get difficult. I don't know how you guys manage things over there, but I think that is definitely a big struggle for an org right now, where we have such inflated salaries, so it can be. If you enjoyed the segment you just watched, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Leven2K. And if you want to listen to the full podcast, you can listen to it over on Spotify, Apple, and Podbean. It's just the Leven Show. And if you want to watch the full version on YouTube, that will be up on Mondays at around 8 GMT. Hope you guys enjoy it.